you're lower on Andre Jackson, a 21-year-old wing from Connecticut, 6'6", probably a second-round guy, but I've seen some people have him sneaking into the first round. But the thing with him is offense. And can you do anything? Like 14 usage, 28% shooting from three, 43% overall. Just no ability to really shoot. Obviously a really low usage player, and those sort of things do concern me. Obviously the shooting can improve, but when you're that low usage as a wing player, I get a little bit worried about what you bring. Now, obviously, there's some really strong rebound and steal numbers and assist numbers there. They're all per 36 numbers that are on the screen, which is all really interesting. But is that complete lack of usage and shooting ability just going to make people pay zero attention to him? So any sort of playmaking skills and even the defensive skills is going to make it harder for him to stay on the court?
Yeah, so like you hit on a lot of the stuff. Like for him, he's kind of a guy who needs to be in a great situation. Like we look at what Bruce Brown did in Brooklyn a couple years ago. Obviously, he's kind of transformed himself into a different player than he was at that point. But somebody who kind of got in where they fit in and was able to get to that kind of floater and do a lot of different things on the court around the KDs, the Kyries, the James Hardens, that kind of made it work. That's probably what he's best suited as. But you're right. If for a guy who isn't a great shooter, and we've seen him be not an ineffective shooter over the last 3 years, that is a major question, and teams are probably going to play off of him until that changes. In terms of being a lead ball handler, there's other guys who do that better in the NBA in most situations, right? Being able to kind of run the point guard like he was this year for UConn, that's probably not something that's going to be readily available. So you're looking at somebody who's going to have to kind of eat space in other ways, being able to get on dribble handoffs, kind of set screens, do things of that nature, kind of do some of the dirty work and open up things that way. But if there's not a situation or offense that kind of provides that, then it starts to get a little bit tougher for him to fit in offensively. So that'd be the kind of the biggest concern. I think at a certain point in the draft in the second round, you kind of want to take a guy like that and hopefully mold him and have confidence in your player development in terms of getting him to be a respectable shooter. I don't think he's ever going to be necessarily good or just maybe somebody you can half close out on. That's kind of the goal for him. And then being able to put him in position because he does have certain things that you still like, the athleticism, the defense, the passing ability. He's kind of able to make plays in a lot of ways. And we saw that in the NBA draft combine, even, in a different role than we've seen him before. So that would be kind of the pitch with him. I'm kind of in the middle there. I'm not the highest on him. I know some people see him as like a true late first round pick. I can't get fully on board there with some of those concerns, but I do think that there is a potential to have a really interesting kind of Swiss Army knife type of player in there.
Yeah, I'm not particularly high on him either. And part of it is, like, obviously the shooting is a problem. And I don't really see him being able to be a guy running an offense and generating all these looks for everybody else. Because part of the thing that stands out to me here is that, averaging 1.6 free throw attempts per 36, 1.3 per game for the season, as the guy who is running as a lead ball handler, that is just a complete lack of confidence in your own offensive game, which is going to be amplified even more at the NBA level, and not having any of that sort of pressure to drive or anything along those lines impacts your ability to hit people on, like even someone like a Ben Simmons, who we know never would shoot, but he would get to the line a ton and he would drive back when he was Ben Simmons. But this is not what this is. This is a guy that's just not getting to the line at all. Now, in terms of defensive ability, we've got a couple of analogs, not quite analogs, but guys that I think it's worth comparing to, guys who can't shoot and can be offensive liabilities, who've worked a little bit on their game in Matisse Thybulle and Herb Jones, who came in as defensive guys. Where does Jackson fit in terms of the defensive profile compared to those two players? Obviously, Herb has worked a ton on his offense. It's still not great, and his shooting's not great, but it is probably a bit better than it was when he came in and more passable. But where does Jackson fit comparatively defensively to those two guys who are considered two of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA?
Yeah, those two are some of the best wing defenders that I've seen over the last couple of years. I think he would be a clear third behind both of them. Matisse Thybulle put up some of the most outrageous steal and block numbers out there, even in that Washington zone, just kind of everywhere, and he continued that immediately in the NBA. Herb Jones was a guy who was able to guard multiple positions at Alabama and did it at a high level. He's the guy who I was really interested, or I was really surprised that he was able to so quickly kind of find a niche offensively and it was able to work as a shooter. I just think that Andre Jackson is a little bit further behind. I think Herb was just a little better offensively still, even being able to get to certain spots on the floor and kind of handle things. So he'd be a clear third defensively, at least to me.
Yeah, to me, he is as well. Like, I think we look at this and go, well, Herb learned to shoot and did this, but it is he's not the same level of defender as those guys who get on the court because of this unbelievable level. And the other stuff sort of comes around. But if you're not doing the defensive side of things at that absolute top peak, teams aren't going to bother with it. They're just, well, you're not actually providing us that much on the offense, on the defensive end, that we're not going to be able to put up with the negativity that's coming on the other end. Whereas Herbert's like, we need to get you on the court. We need to do this. You need to provide us this, but you're going to be out there because you're providing us that level of defense. And then that leads us to hopefully some more stuff happening offensively. So it is a different situation. And people also point to guys like a Marcus Smart, who's like, oh yeah, he's such a great defender, but he struggles offensively. He doesn't shoot well. But Marcus Smart averaged 18 points a game in college and shot 5 threes a game and 8 free throws a game in his sophomore year at Oklahoma State. Like, completely different players. So what you're looking at is maybe what Marcus Smart does now in the NBA is what Andre Jackson did in college, and that's not what you want him to do. You want those guys to be higher in college and then scale back into the role. And when you start from that lower area, you can't really even demand stuff offensively or be at that elite high level in college, and that does become a lot harder to do that in the NBA. So I think a lot of people can sometimes get a little bit mixed up with that sort of stuff. Now, the last guy we're going to